Hello, hello, hello. We are live. Woohoo! Next book club meeting for October, all about eating, guys. We're talking about Just Eat It by Laura Thomas, PhD. So I fell in love with like the title itself and this donut. I was like, are you kidding me? It's like actually my favorite type of donut, a strawberry covered donut with sprinkles. Haven't had that in forever. Oh my goodness. So I was fascinated by the book and saw that online and was like, gotta read it, gotta bring it to the Dress Your Mate book club. So that's what we're talking about in like a couple of seconds. Get some water, chill out wherever you may be in the world. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And let's have a conversation about food. I think it's important because it's something we all have to deal with no matter where you are in this world, no matter what size you are. Eating, nutrition is a part of your daily lifestyle and regimen. So for me, I wanted to talk about this because being a plus size person, it was, something that's always on my mind, but looking forward to having a really cool conversation around this. So it's time. Let's get started. Hello, my name is Natasha Nurse. I am the founder of Dress Your Mate, a coaching platform designed to teaching women and men, mostly women, how to really emphasize what's most important to them in their personal lives and in their careers, and to really focus my coaching on accountability coaching, media, and career coaching. And every month I come on here to do a book club meeting. That's what we're here today. We're talking about Just Eat It by Laura Thomas, PhD. Reason being, if you heard me earlier, food, it matters to all of us, no matter where you come from in the world, no matter what you're doing, no matter what size you are. And for me, food has always played an interesting role in my life because I haven't had a healthy relationship with it for many, many years, right? So growing up, I had a mom who definitely ate her feelings, and that skill set was definitely imbued upon me. And so even in my best of moments, and I would say at this point in my life, I'm the healthiest and fittest I've ever been as an adult. And it's because I specifically spend time working out and exercising every day and really paying attention to what I'm eating. But I still struggle. I struggle because I've had more years of not healthiness and not a good relationship with food. So I was really looking forward to having this book be a guide to me. Just Eat It. So you can get the book at dressyourmate.com. Super easy. You can get the Kindle, you can get the print version. Let me tell you a little bit about the author so you understand her perspective. And then we'll just kind of go through the segments and take it from there. So Laura Thomas, PhD, is a registered nutritionist who isn't afraid to say it like it is. Having had her own strained and weird relationship with food, now helps her clients build healthy attitudes to food by helping them tune into their innate hunger and satiated cues and disconnect from diet tools like meal plans and calorie trackers, using a process called intuitive eating and other non-diet approaches. So definitely in the book, what I got across was that she definitely is not a fan of diets, that essentially diets don't work. And I was like, okay. That's interesting because we live in a very diet cultured society, at least here in America. I can't speak, internationally, but it's interesting. So let's get through some of this. And if you have comments, please don't be shy. Put them in here. I'm here on Facebook. I'm here on YouTube. I'm here on Periscope. And I'm just going to go through like every book club. I come on here and talk about different segments of the book that I think is going to be interesting for you. And then hopefully if you're interested, you get the book. You get it at dressyourmate.com, and it's a win-win, guys. So first, she defines the continuum of eating, and she says it as the following. Our eating behaviors lie on a continuum between intuitive eating and clinical eating disorders. And we'll talk more specifically about what intuitive eating really means in a second. But for now, let's define it as just regular eating without any hangups. That makes sense, right? We all have a different normal, so it looks slightly different on everyone. Having said that, in general, it means not having food rules, not excluding things from your diet unless you have an allergy, ethical, or religious reason, not feeling stressed or anxious about food. That's an interesting one. Not feeling guilty about eating cakes or crisps or other foods you enjoy. Having flexibility in your eating, enjoying food, and then tuning into your hunger and fullness signals most of the time. And then eating foods that make you feel energized and well most of the time. So I'm not sure if you can see it, but she puts kind of this little continuum here between intuitive eating on the left, disordered eating in the middle, and then in the right, clinical eating disorders. interesting stuff. And just in case you weren't aware of what disordered eating is, that was a new term for me that I learned from the book, and I'll give you her description here. Disordered eating describes abnormal eating behaviors that may include skipping meals, binge eating, restricting certain food types, or fasting. These eating patterns are deviations from the cultural standard of 3 meals a day, which is often found in Western cultures. Disordered eating indicates a deviation from these normal cultural norms, including food restrictions, skipping meals, and overeating. These deviations from cultural norms may be related to later development of an eating disorder, but they do not necessarily indicate that an eating disorder is present. So it's kind of like eating differently, but it not necessarily to the point where it might be like a medical condition, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know that there was a term for that, because a lot of times when we think about like, oh, you know, right before the holidays, what do a lot of people like to do? At least for me, I've heard some women talk about going on fasts, right? Wanting to kind of drop a couple of pounds in preparation for a certain event or things like that. And so I think that would fall within this disordered eating pattern, which interesting, very, very interesting. She gives lots of nutritional tips in this book. So for me personally, just so you know what's my perspective, I thought it was very informative. Was it the most enjoyable read I've had? No, not necessarily. But I think that when you read content that's a little bit dense, and especially about food, for me, like a book about intuitive eating, to me, that would have been probably a bit more compelling, would have been a book about different narrative stories of women, right? Like I would have loved to have read kind of something like similar to, I forget the name of that movie, but Cher was in it. It's like, if these walls could talk, right? Where it's like different stories of women who maybe have struggled with eating disorders or overeating, binge eating. I feel like that would have been more humanistic in nature and it would have resonated a bit more and been less dense. I don't know why we needed a book quite so large, but nonetheless, that's my perspective. So she gives nutritional tips in case you're looking for help on that. And if you're wondering who is this book for, she has a whole page on that. So that's on page 25. She writes, I'm writing from my perspective as a cis het, straight size, able-bodied white woman. That's my perspective. That's my experience. And I can't claim to know other experiences. I'm aware of and care deeply about the experiences of and issues around food, body image, and self-acceptance faced by marginalized groups and communities. And I don't want to imply for a second that these issues do not deserve attention. They absolutely do, but because those are not my experiences, I cannot and wouldn't speak want to speak for those groups. I do, however, want to make it clear that absolutely everyone is welcome here unconditionally. If there is something here for you, please take it. I want to add too that the concept of intuitive eating and intuitive movement are inherently albiest, directed at those who are neurotypical. Please adapt concepts where you can and disregards ones that don't apply or are not useful to you. Working with an intuitive eating specialist, registered nutritionist, or registered dietitian can help navigate some of these problems. This book is aimed at women with eating problems, as they have historically been at the receiving end of diet culture and patriarchal oppression. But I recognize that they are not only the group who have suffered, and that the problem is compounded by intersecting identities. Fascinating. She ends it by saying, please know that I'm constantly learning and evolving my approach to be more inclusive. I also acknowledge the privilege tied up in my body, my socioeconomic position, and my education. My intention here is to leverage it into helping empower people to throw off the constraints of diet culture so we can focus on the real issues of justice and equality. So I thought that was a pretty powerful statement of like, hey, I'm a white woman, I'm a straight woman, I'm coming from this perspective, this is where I'm at with it. I'm not assuming or presuming that I know anyone else's perspective. If this is helpful, take what's helpful. If it's not, it's not. I like that. I felt like that was kind of the permission as an author to say, hey, I don't know everything, but this is what I do know. I hope some of this is helpful to you. So I appreciated that. I felt like that was a very genuine statement to put in there. So I thought that was helpful. She defines a lot. There's a lot of concepts around food and eating that I was not aware of. So I definitely, if that's something that you're interested in learning more about, this is definitely going to help you with that. She also has exercises in this book. I didn't necessarily feel compelled to take them, but I thought, it was helpful to have them. She states a lot of stats around diet culture, around how women view their body in media and things that are affecting how we see ourselves. She also talks about selfie and specifically selfie objectification. Have you heard about this? This was interesting to me. So she says the following. Basing our self-worth on other people's evaluation is one thing, but it is the constant body scrutiny on social media contributing to a phenomenon where we begin to view ourselves as an observer. Does it encourage us to value our bodies in terms of how they look instead of what they can do? Abso-effing-lutely. Self-objectification theory was developed in the 90s and posits that in American culture, girls and women tend to see themselves through a veil of sexism, measuring their self-worth by evaluating their physical appearance against our cultural's sexually objectifying and unrealistic standards of beauty. The male gaze is the tendency for women to be viewed by society through the eyes of heterosexual men as objects of male pleasure, primarily there to fulfill men's sexual desires. When we self-objectify, we turn the male gaze in on ourselves and view ourselves as sexually desirable objects. This may not be conscious behavior, but when we view our own image, we are thinking, would I F me? Interesting. Self-objectification can manifest as body surveillance, checking and constant monitoring of the body and appearance, as well as disordered eating. I thought that was so fascinating, right? Because when you think, oh, I'm just taking a selfie, right? Like I'm documenting myself. I want to see how cute I am. But is it something deeper? Are you really doing this like, would I F myself? Like, wow, here we go. Okay, then this is getting deep, guys. So very, very interesting. And she goes on and so if you do have a copy of the book, I'm reading from page 40 to 41 here. And so she goes on to say they found no relationship between how long the women spent on social media. She's talking about a study where there was over 1 million selfies are taken, right, every day. And in a survey for specifically 250 young female college students between the ages of 18 and 29 on their behaviors related to taking selfies, it was identified that there's no relationship between how long the women spent on social media or how many selfies were posted and disordered eating or body image concerns. But they did find that women who were heavily invested in selfie taking / editing had more body image concerns and disordered eating. They also found that self-objectification explains the link in the relationship between how invested people were in their selfie taking, spending a lot of time picking and editing photos or staging the photo in the first place, and body-related and eating concerns. So people who are more, I guess, concerned about how they're presenting on social media could have a higher tendency for disordered eating or self-esteem or body image issues. That makes sense, right? Because the more you're publicly putting yourself out there, the more that you're going to be concerned of like, oh God, how does this look? Right? And so that I think makes sense. But yes, selfie objectification. Think about it next time you take a selfie. Very interesting stuff, guys. She goes on to talking about swimsuit stuff, the thin ideal internalization, right? This idea that like we all want to be the thinnest person possible, fat phobia, right? This kind of hatred for bigger bodied people in our society, and where is that stemming from? She talks about healthism, which I'll define that for you because again, that was a new term for me. I was not aware of what I was like, whoa, the learning off the chain, guys. This is on page 51. So another consequence of diet culture is healthism, a term coined by Robert Crawford and defined as preoccupation with personal health as a primary, often the primary focus for the definition and achievement of well-being, a goal which is to be achieved primarily through the modification of lifestyles. In English, this idea that your sole purpose in life is to be chasing after perfect health, of course, the subtext being that there is such a thing as perfect health, and health is a personal obligation. The latter of these completely ignores things like social concerns and the health of our communities. This is further complicated by the fact that we think weight equals health, albeit subconsciously in the context of healthism. On the surface, sure, we're told it's about preventing disease, but have you ever seen any fat wellness gurus? Exactly. Woo, right? So interesting that there is still, right, when people focus on how healthy are you, it's coming still attached to that narrative of thin, right, certain body image idealization, and that then being the depiction of what health is. Because if you hear a plus size or bigger body person talking about health and wellness in life, right, are you going to take them seriously? Are you even going to consider them healthy? Are you even going to consider them an expert in their field because they're not of that size? Fascinating, fascinating stuff. Couple more things that I'd like to talk about. It's a big book, guys. So definitely be prepared to dive in and get in there. So Interesting. So here are signs. Now, this was interesting. On page 71, she talks about kind of pseudo diets, right? So you might be thinking, I'm not on a diet. And sure, you might not be going to Weight Watchers or Slimming World, but let's talk about all the subtle ways we can be on a diet or attempting to control our eating. Maybe our plan is to eat clean, maybe challenge ourselves to Whole30, just do what the bloggers do. It's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's about balance. It's an effing diet. Sure, it's subtle, not easy to spot. But once you know the signs of a diet, you cannot unsee them. So this is interesting. So here are some signs, rules about what, how much, or when to eat. But here are some other things to rule out. Can you break rules? Diet. Can you mess up? Diet. Can you have cheat days? Diet. Does it have off-limit foods? Diet. Do you count points? Diet. Does it promote guilt-free foods? Diet. Is someone trying to sell you something? Diet. Are you being told what, how much, or when to eat? Diet. Is it a case of eat like me, do like me, diet, look like me, diet? Do you have to count calories, macros, or track activity? Diet. Do you have to follow a meal plan? Diet. Woo! Interesting. So if any of those language kind of comes up into what you're currently doing and your relationship with food, presumably you are on a diet, just in case you didn't know. So there you go. She talks about diet cycle, which I thought was interesting. That's on page 76 if you get the book. Diet meta assessment, scarcity mindset, like the issues that we have when we do starve ourselves, when we don't nourish our bodies, what it's really doing, the deeper, bigger impact there. I thought that was interesting. And then let me get through some more at the end. I would say at the end, I think I liked it a bit more just because there were some sections where she included like some people in the field who were sharing their thoughts about food and stuff like that. And then also she talked a little bit more about the relationship we have with our minds, like what we're thinking about when we're eating. And I think for me, that's always been an issue because like she talks about sometimes it's okay to, even if you eat, if you're still hungry, to like eat again, and knowing the difference of type of hunger that you have, right? Like, are you fully full? Are you semi-full? Like all those things were not things that I learned about or was talked to about. So I thought that that was like really enlightening when reading about it. She is on page 127 titled, Listen to Your Damn Body. I was like, yes, okay. The idea of listening to our bodies sounds fairly nebulous, but it's actually a concept from physiology, which is the branch of biology that deals with normal functioning of our body. And that concept is called Intraoceptive Awareness, basically how well an individual can perceive and interpret the signals their body is sending to them. And this is really cool. The first studies done on Intraoceptive Awareness was conceptualized as people who could accurately perceive their own heart rate without taking their pulse. They just sit quietly and they can feel their hearts beating. Try it. Sit in a quiet room. If you have a heart rate monitor, watch. Compare the value it measured to the number you count in your head over a minute. Pretty neat, right? How close did you guess? Interesting, right? So intuitiveness is really embracing the idea of that, like your body is telling you what you need. You just have to actually like shut up and listen to it and actually take action. When your body's telling you it's thirsty, when it's hungry, like actually, like right now, I'm thirsty. I will drink after this though. So there's that. She talks about balancing snacks. I thought this was helpful. So she offers some snacks like between grains versus proteins versus fat. I love that she had like avocado on there. I'm big into avocado. Like I have, my fridge is constantly packed with guacamole. Like give me guac all day, every day. I put it on steak. I put it on eggs. I put guac on everything. I love it. And she talks about kind of the different percentages or ways that you can balance out your snacks. Because again, people do this horrible habit of like everything or nothing, right? And it's really, it doesn't have to be that extreme. It's really about looking at what your nutritional needs are and balancing things out based on what you need, what your body is calling for. So really thinking that through and not just being like, no, I have to do this because this is the diet I'm on. Like F that, right? Like go beyond that. She talks about body acceptance, which is, I mean, I would say only thankfully, like since I've started my platform of Dressing Your Mate, of really like being able to fully accept my body and fully accept myself and flaws included, right? Like every scar, every stretch mark, every cut, every bulge and cellulite and, you know, all that good stuff, right? All that juiciness. being accepted and being like, listen, you're a bad mamma jamma. I like you. Go ahead. Yes. And you have to do that. You have to hype yourself up. You have to love on yourself every single day. Otherwise, you're giving permission to the world to pretty much shit on you. And so if you don't want that experience, then you're going to have to treat yourself better. On page 151, she explains the following for body acceptance. Body acceptance is about accepting this is the body you have and feeling neutral about that fact. It means not thinking that you're flawless and bootylicious 24/7, but also not thinking that you're hideous and have to change. Actually, it's not thinking very much about your body very much at all. It's just accepting that how it looks is how it looks and getting on with your days. Yeah, for me, I would say I've felt better the more, not necessarily feeling like, ooh, I'm bootylicious 24/7, but like pinpointing things that I do really love about myself and like making sure that I'm dressing in a way that like accentuates certain things. And like I love my big old booty, love my big old, my big girls, right? Like, and making sure I wear things that make me feel beautiful. And if it doesn't make me feel beautiful, it doesn't mean that I'm not beautiful. It's just identifying that like, maybe that cut doesn't work, or maybe this isn't, you know, it's whatever time of the month, right? Like things like that. And just being kinder to yourself, I think, is helpful. She talks about body respect on page 152, which is the idea that maybe we aren't totally comfortable with our bodies. We might be stuck in a place of cognitive dissonance where we simultaneously understand that diets didn't work, but are wrestling with wanting to change our bodies. This is totally understandable given the number that diet culture has done on us. But while you're working towards intuitive eating and ditching diet mentality, can you show your body respect? You may not love your body. You may not even feel okay with your body, but you can show your body a level of care and respect that means it's getting its basic needs met. Powerful stuff that might look different for everyone, but here are some ideas for what body respect could look like. Powerful. Regularly nourishing yourself with meals and snacks, like not starving, key. Gentle movement that feels good in your body. Working out, walking. I walk 10,000 steps a day. What are you doing, right? Like, come on. Regular medical and dental checkups. Yes, I so second that. I've been very ill. I was very ill for several years just because I just didn't do that. Just didn't go to the doctor enough. Super important. Here is, oh, and of course, taking care of your body, basic self-care, hygiene, taking medicines. Yes, take my daily pills, shower, right? All the hygiene, lotions, oils, all that good stuff. Now, here's what body respect is not. Restricting food, dieting. Woo, child. Punishing yourself with exercise, earning food through exercise. Yeah, that's not good, right? That idea of like, I'll go to the gym for 2 hours for a cupcake. That's not self-respect or body respect. Now, pinching, poking, or otherwise being cruel to your body. Yes, we cannot make fun of ourselves, nor can we physically harm ourselves. That's not helpful. Judging your own or other people's bodies. That's a losing proposition, right? Somebody will always be hotter than you, someone who will always not be. So focus on you, stay focused on this temple that you have. And then body shaming, again, yourself or others. Yes, yes, yes. We have one temple. We are born into this earth with one body. Take care of it. Be proud of it, respect it, care for it, speak beautiful, kind words to it, and honor the temple that you have. You only have one, right? So as we're winding down, let me see if there's any additional things. Oh, I thought this was interesting. On page 204, this is a big book, guys. You guys, it's a big book. It's a big book. It's like a very big book. Food is not medicine. Sure, nutrition can be an important part of our overall health and well-being, but we'll discuss how we can gently apply nutritional concepts toward the end of the book. But quotes like, every bite you take is either harming or healing you, vastly overstates the power of nutrition. Nutrition can play an important role in helping prevent and manage certain conditions, but so can exercise, reducing alcohol intake, getting better quality sleep, reducing stress, stopping smoking, being gifted genetically, having strong social bonds / community therapy, not being poor as though it was a simple choice, living somewhere that isn't super polluted, again, like it's a choice. Oh yeah, and actual medicine. Part of the issue with the food is that medicine rhetoric is that it is inadvertently put people off seeking pharmacotherapies by creating a culture of shame around prescription medicine. Antidepressants are a perfect example. There's so much stigma around them and mental health more generally. Yet, for some people, they are life-saving. The most perfect diet and lifestyle in the world cannot completely eradicate the need for antidepressants, and to be able to argue otherwise is an incredibly privileged position that not everyone who needs these medicines share. Super important. There's a distinction between food and medicine, and I think that she's speaking to several things there, right? Food and medicine are two different things, and we have to welcome people who embrace treating their mental health conditions, because we all have mental health concerns. If you're alive, your health is both mental and physical. And for people who say, you know what, I need a bit of medical assistance to continue on in my day, is a beautiful thing. This is not something that we should mock or stigmatize, because people have a right to feel well in their mind, in their bodies, in their souls, in their hearts, right? So yes, I love that piece of it. Now she goes on, starting on page 249, about a simple kind of formula of like components of what mindful eating is, just in case you weren't aware. I'll do a little bit and then we're gonna wrap this up. So mindful eating can help us really heighten the pleasure and the satisfaction we get from meals. Instead of being on autopilot when eating, we gently bring our awareness to the multi-sensory eating experience: sight, sound, taste, touch, smell, temperature, and texture. This in turn can help us find the amount and type of food that will give us the most satisfaction from our eating. So one, she talks about alimentary alesthesia. The words in here are crazy. Crazy. Mindful eating brings awareness of how the perception of pleasure and palatability changes over the course of a meal. You know, when you take the first couple of bites of something, when you're gently hungry, it tastes like pure heaven. But towards the end, you kind of take it or leave it. This is called alimentary alesthesia. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. And if you're paying attention, this diminishing pleasure can give you a clue as to when you're edging towards fullness. That makes sense. I've definitely experienced that. I definitely struggle with figuring out proper portion controls, because again, growing up in a Caribbean culture, it's like giant plates, right? Giant peka rice, giant oxtail, and like I had oxtail and rice for my breakfast this morning, like, you know, and so figuring out what is the appropriate amount where you eat it and you just feel full versus you eat it and you feel like you're about to die. Still trying to figure out that fine line for myself. It is not something that's been naturally intuitive to me personally. But again, if you have help and tips on that, I'd love for you to share that in the comments here, or Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, wherever you're catching this, because always trying to learn that. Now, next point she has as component for mindful eating is non-judgmental awareness. Approaching the eating experience with a sense of non-judgmental awareness allows us to get in touch with whether or not we are actually enjoying the eating experience, and helps us stop the voice of the inner food critic. Instead of saying this cake is so full of fat and chemicals, positive, negative, and neutral responses to food are made with curiosity. This cake is dry, or this cake is fresh and tasty. Interesting. Then fostering gratitude. Bringing mindfulness to the eating experience can also help us foster a sense of gratitude for the food we are eating. That could mean just being grateful that we have something to eat at all. So many don't have enough to eat, even in the UK, where I'm assuming this is where she's from, where she's coming from that perspective. It could mean being thankful to whoever prepared the food. It could be grateful for Cadbury's consistently releasing their magical purple and red foiled eggs every year. She's funny. Or for that ready meal that was a total lifesaver, because your disability prevents you from being able to cook meals from scratch. And without it, you'd go hungry or have a packet of crisps for dinner. Her and Chris, she's mentioned that a couple of times. It could be to the farmer who grew our food, right? And so she goes on to talking about gratefulness. So super, super helpful. That's on page, she goes on about it more on page 250. And as we're winding down, my last minute thoughts again, and for anyone, Just Eat It by Laura Thomas, PhD. It is a book about intuitive eating. It is a book about your relationship with your body and food. If that is something that you struggle with and or something that you want to learn more of, I think this is a good read, but it's very dense and it's big. It's not just like a run through or a narrative story. It's a lot of science. There's a lot of stats in here. There's also a lot of information and words. You'll be like, how you say that? What you said? But you'll learn something. You'll get through it. So it surprised me, not in the way that I expected, but I definitely appreciate it. And I feel smarter and more aware of who I am in my relationship to food than when I started the book. So I'm really grateful for that. And for those of you who do get a copy of it at dressingyourmate.com, please put in the comments whether you read it this weekend or 2 weekends from now or a year from now. Please come back and share with me kind of your thoughts. I'd really love to know what you think about it, but I'm really hoping that you do get a copy of the book so that we can chat about it, because who doesn't want to talk with Tosh about it? Come on, you know I'm a good time, guys. Let's do this. So what are we reading for the next month? You're going to have to go to dressroommate.com after, usually the day after we have our book club, I post the next book. So you're going to have kind of what we're reading about. And just to give you like a heads up, we are reading about interviews. The next book club is 96 great interview questions to ask before you hire. So for those of you who are in business, for those of you who are looking to start a new job, understanding what good interview questions and how to master them is going to help you, whether you're on the side of I'm looking for a job or you're actually hiring and you're in a position to broaden your company or broaden your organization or your business. It's going to be good times. I love interviewing, and as a coach, helping people to really craft their persona when they go on an interview has always been one of my favorite things to do. I love, love, love interviewing, and because I feel that I do it very well and I help people do it. So it's always a good time, guys. Thank you for joining me. Thank you. If you get the book, Just Eat It, Laura Thomas, PhD. If you have questions or comments, please put them here. I'm on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Periscope. As always, it's a pleasure, my loves. And I can't wait to see you soon. And please have a wonderful, productive day. Eat something, drink some water, have some fun, live your best lives because you deserve it. All right. I'll see you soon. Bye.